The wind doesn't touch Cerro Paranal anymore. It used to. Back when the observatory hummed with voices, when telescopes turned in unison like a choir of eyes scanning the deep. Back when Elias Ward was someone other than the man who let 3 people die in the dark. Now the wind just stops, as if the mountain itself holds its breath. Elias stood at the observation deck's edge, coffee cold in his hand, watching the Atacama Desert stretch into nothingness. 4 years since the accident. 4 years since the Kepler relay mission failed, since the comms went silent, since he made the call to wait for better data instead of sending the rescue drone immediately. 6 hours. That's how long he waited. 6 hours was enough for the oxygen to run out. The inquiry called it acceptable decision-making under uncertainty. His colleagues called it cowardice. Elias called it what it was, the moment he learned that space doesn't forgive hesitation. So he stopped hesitating, he stopped sleeping, stopped answering calls, stopped pretending the universe owed him forgiveness. Instead, he came here, to this abandoned Chilean research station where the telescopes still worked but nobody came to use them anymore, where he could watch the stars alone and try to find the pattern he'd seen before they all stopped listening. The signal, the one that ruined him the first time. It started 8 years ago. A repeating pulse in the cosmic microwave background, structured, rhythmic, impossible. He'd published preliminary findings, called it evidence of non-random universal structure, maybe even communication. The astrophysics community tore him apart. Pareidolia, they said, seeing faces in static. Then came the Kepler mission, the deaths, the silence, and Elias Ward became a ghost haunting an empty mountain. But ghosts, he'd learned, are just things that refuse to stop existing. October 12th. The designation came through the International Astronomical Union's automated network at 3:47 UTC, 3I/ATLAS, the third confirmed interstellar object to enter our solar system. Elias saw it 4 minutes later, not because he was looking for it, because it was looking at him. He'd been dreaming again, the same dream he'd had for 4 years, the one where he could hear their voices through the static. Dr. Marcus Webb asking for confirmation. Yuki Tanaka reporting oxygen levels dropping. Chen Ming, the youngest of them, just 26, saying his daughter's name over and over like a prayer. And Elias, young and stupid and certain the data would clarify if he just waited another hour, saying, "Hold position. We need better telemetry." 6 hours later, silence. The dream always ended the same way, with Elias floating in space, watching their capsule drift away, close enough to see their faces through the viewport but unable to reach them, unable to save them, unable to do anything but watch. He woke gasping, as always, reached for the bottle of whiskey he kept by the cot, as always. But tonight, something was different. The observatory's alarm system was screaming. Elias rolled out of bed, stumbled to the console in his boxers and an old MIT sweatshirt with holes in the sleeves. His fingers found the keyboard by muscle memory, pulling up the alert. Automated detection, unusual object, trajectory anomaly. His heart, still pounding from the nightmare, shifted into a different rhythm, the familiar pulse of discovery. The telescope's alarm woke him from a half-sleep in the control room chair. Screen after screen blazed with light. Trajectory data, spectral analysis, velocity measurements, all screaming the same impossible thing. This object should not exist. Its albedo was wrong, reflecting 97% of incident light, nearly perfect, like polished chrome hurtling through the void. Comets don't do that, asteroids don't do that. Nothing natural shines like a mirror in the dark. But there it was. Elias pulled up the orbital path. His hands shook as he traced the line across his screen, watching the projected course bend through the solar system like a thread pulled through fabric. It wasn't following a hyperbolic trajectory like Oumuamua had. It wasn't slingshotting around the sun and leaving. It was slowing down. "No," he whispered to the empty room. "No, you don't do that. You can't do that. Objects from interstellar space don't break. They don't adjust. They follow the math. Pure gravitational ballet. predictable as sunrise, unless something was steering. He ran the numbers again, then again, each time the same result. ATLAS3. I was decelerating at a rate that required thrust, adjustment, intention. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. The desert dawn was painting the mountains rust and gold. Elias didn't notice. He was too busy watching the data stream from every major observatory that had eyes on the object. They were all seeing it, which meant this time he wasn't crazy. This time they'd have to listen. The numbers scrolled past his tired eyes. Velocity 26.3 kilometers per second and decreasing. That alone was wrong. Interstellar objects should be accelerating as they fell toward the sun, not slowing down. The deceleration was subtle, only 0.03% per hour, but it was there, measurable, real. Elias pulled up the spectroscopy data from the Atacama Large Millimeter Array. Atlas showed no cometary activity, no coma, no tail, no outgassing. Its surface temperature was exactly what you'd expect from an inert body at that distance from the sun. Nothing was venting to provide thrust, nothing was burning. So what was slowing it down? He ran calculations for solar radiation pressure. Insufficient. Gravitational perturbations from Jupiter, not at this distance. Magnetic field interactions, theoretically possible, but would require a magnetic moment orders of magnitude beyond anything ever measured. Unless this wasn't a natural object at all. Elias sat back, heart hammering. His reflection stared back from the darkened window, gaunt face, grey streaking his beard, eyes red-rimmed from too many sleepless nights. He looked like a man who'd already died and just hadn't stopped moving yet. Maybe that's what it took to see impossible things. You had to stop being attached to the possible. The first 72 hours were a fever dream. Elias didn't leave the control room, didn't shower. I barely ate. He just watched Atlas grow brighter as it crossed the orbital plane of Neptune, still slowing, still impossible. The object was roughly 300 meters across, small for a comet, massive for an artifact. Its spectrum showed no coma, no outgassing, no ice sublimation, just that mirror-bright surface and a series of light variations that made no sense until he plotted them. The brightness flickered, not randomly, but in structured intervals. Long pulses and short pulses, bright and dim, like Morse code written in starlight. Elias isolated the signal and ran it through pattern recognition software. Nothing. He tried frequency analysis. Nothing. He pulled up every known communication protocol, ancient and modern. Still nothing, but the pattern was there. He could feel it. On the fourth day, half delirious from exhaustion, he did something desperate. He overlaid the light pattern with the cosmic microwave background signature from 8 years ago, the one that destroyed his career. They matched. Not perfectly, but the rhythm, the structure, the intervals between pulses. It was the same mathematical skeleton wearing different flesh. His breath caught. All this time, he'd thought the signal was coming from deep space, from some distant galaxy or quantum fluctuation in the fabric of space-time. But it wasn't coming from out there. It was coming from this, from Atlas, or from whatever had sent Atlas. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and started calling every observatory, every colleague who might still take his call. Most hung up. Some let him speak for 30 seconds before politely disconnecting. One listened. Dr. Sarah Chen, Infrared Spectroscopy, Palomar Observatory. They'd been grad students together back when the universe still felt knowable. Elias. Her voice crackled through the line, tired and concerned. "It's 4 a.m? The interstellar object," he said, words tumbling out too fast. "Atlas. You're tracking it, right?" "Everyone's tracking it. It's the astronomical event of the decade. The light variations. Have you analysed them?" A pause. He heard keys clicking. "There's some periodicity, yeah, probably rotational, maybe uneven albedo across the surface." "Sarah, it's not rotation, it's structured. It's the same pattern I found 8 years ago." Silence, long enough that he thought she'd hung up. "Elias," she said finally, gentle as a goodbye, "you need to sleep. You need to step back from this. I'm sending you the data. Don't. Firm now. Don't do this to yourself again. Don't see patterns that aren't there just because you need them to be. The line went dead. Elias set the phone down, stared at his screens, at the object that everyone else saw as a curiosity and he saw as a message. I'm not crazy, he told the empty room. The stars didn't answer, but Atlas kept blinking. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine run amok. We see faces in clouds, hear voices in white noise, find meaning in randomness because meaning feels safer than chaos. Elias knew this, had written papers on it, on cognitive bias in astronomical interpretation, on the psychological need for signals in the cosmic static. He knew all the ways he could be wrong, but he also knew how to prove himself right. He wrote a decryption algorithm not based on human languages or mathematics, but on universal physical constants, the speed of light, Planck's constant, the fine structure constant, things that would be true anywhere in the universe for anyone trying to communicate across the void. The problem with searching for alien intelligence, Elias had learned long ago, is that we're always looking for ourselves. We search for radio signals because we use radio. We look for mathematical sequences because we value mathematics. We expect communication to look like what we would send. But what if intelligence communicated through something more fundamental? What if the message was written in the language of physics itself, in the relationships between fundamental constants, in the ratios that couldn't be changed without breaking reality? He built his algorithm around this idea, fed it the light curve data from ATLAS, told it to look for patterns that matched universal ratios. For 6 hours, nothing. Elias paced the observatory like a caged animal, made coffee, forgot to drink it, made more. The mountain air was cold and thin, and his breath fogged the windows when he pressed his forehead against the glass, staring out at the desert stars. Somewhere out there, beyond Neptune, ATLAS was falling toward the inner solar system, slowing down, blinking its incomprehensible message. And he was here, alone on a mountaintop in Chile, trying to read meaning into light, the story of his life. At 2:33 a.m. on October 18th, the computer chimed. Elias jerked awake from a standing half-sleep, nearly spilling coffee across his keyboard. His heart seized. For a moment he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stare at the screen. The screen showed a single line of text. Pattern recognized. Nucleotide sequence encoding detected. His heart stopped. Nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA. With shaking hands, he ran the full analysis. The computer chewed through the data, pulling apart the light variations, translating brightness and darkness into quaternary code, not binary, but four-state, like the 4 nucleotide bases: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. The light pattern, when properly decoded, contained genetic information, human genetic information, specifically chromosome 7, segment 114 million to 114,500,000. The CFTR gene region. Elias stared at the readout, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. This couldn't be right. It couldn't be. He must have made an error in the algorithm, must have introduced contamination somehow. He ran it again. Same result again, same result. He pulled up genetic databases, cross-referenced the sequences. They weren't just random DNA, they were real, actual human genetic information, matching sequences in the global genome database. But whose? He dug deeper into the decoded transmission, found metadata buried in the non-coding regions, geographic coordinates, timestamps, dates and locations that, when converted, gave specific places on Earth, specific times, birth records. Someone had encoded human DNA sequences along with the birth coordinates of the people who carried them. Elias scrolled through the list of coordinates, his coffee forgotten, his exhaustion forgotten, everything forgotten except the growing horror of what he was seeing: 47 sets of coordinates, 47 genetic sequences, 47 people. His finger hovered over one entry. Latitude minus 24.6272 degrees south, longitude minus 70.4041 degrees west. Date June 17th, 1987. Time 14:23 UTC. His hands went cold. Those were the exact coordinates of Antofagasta Hospital, Chile. That was his birthday. His birth time down to the minute. No, this was wrong. This was contamination. Had to be. He'd accidentally included his own genomic data somehow, created a feedback loop, seen a pattern that wasn't there. But when he pulled up his genome from a research study he'd participated in 5 years ago and compared it to the sequence Atlas was broadcasting, 99.7% match. The room tilted. Elias grabbed the desk to steady himself. The interstellar object was broadcasting his DNA, along with his birth coordinates, along with the birth coordinates of 46 other people. Someone, something, had sent human genetic data from an interstellar object, had encoded it in starlight, had known these specific people would exist, had known where and when they would be born, had sent this information from outside the solar system, meaning it had been traveling for years, decades, maybe centuries, which meant someone had known he would be here, had known he would be looking, had known his DNA before he was born. Elias stood. Saturday, stood again, paced the control room in tight circles, breathing too fast, thoughts spiraling. This wasn't first contact. This was something worse. This was being recognized. He stood. Saturday stood again. His mind reeled, trying to find rational explanations and failing. Someone was sending human genetic data from an interstellar object. Someone knew his genome. Someone encoded his birth coordinates in starlight and sent them across the void. But who and when? Because Atlas had come from outside the solar system, from interstellar space, which meant this message had been traveling for years, decades, maybe centuries, which meant someone had known he would be here, had known he would be looking, had known his DNA before he was born. Elias opened his research files with shaking hands, started pulling up every person whose coordinates he could decode from the signal, cross-referenced birth dates and locations. 47 names emerged, all human, all born between 1965 and 2003, all from different countries, different backgrounds, all still alive. He recognized 3 of the names. One was Sarah Chen. Another was Dr. Marcus Webb, the principal investigator of the Kepler relay mission, the one who'd testified against Elias at the inquiry. The third name made him stop breathing. Yuki Tanaka, systems engineer, Kepler relay mission. She had been one of the 3 people who died waiting for rescue. Elias stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Atlas wasn't sending a message to humanity. It was sending a message to them, to the people on this list, to the survivors and the dead. The question was, why? And the even bigger question, the one that made his stomach turn to ice, how did they know we would be here to receive it? Here's what Elias understood about scientific discovery. It doesn't happen in eureka moments. It happens in the slow accumulation of evidence, the careful testing of hypotheses, the peer review and replication, and eventual consensus. Here's what Elias understood about the universe. Sometimes it doesn't care about your process. He spent 3 days trying to find a rational explanation. Stellar contamination, experimental error, hacking, coincidence. None of it fit. The signal was real, the DNA was real, the coordinates were real. So on October 21st, at 11:47 p.m., Elias did something that would have gotten him laughed out of any respectable institution. He responded. The observatory had a radio telescope array. Old equipment, barely maintained but functional. Powerful enough to send a directed signal toward ATLAS's current position. He crafted a simple message, mathematical, universal, a series of prime numbers followed by the same genetic sequences that Atlas had transmitted, followed by a question in binary. Who sent you? He aimed the dish, set the frequency to match ATLAS's light variations, and transmitted. The signal raced outward at the speed of light, crossing the gap between Earth and the object in minutes. And then Elias waited. The desert night was so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat. The observatory's systems hummed, stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. He made coffee, paced, checked the receivers. Nothing. Maybe he was crazy after all. Maybe this was just his mind breaking under the weight of guilt, creating patterns to give meaning to senseless loss. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe he needed to step back, to let go, to stop. The receiver alarm screamed. Elias lunged for the console. Every screen lit up at once, data flooding in so fast the systems could barely process it. Atlas was responding, not with light this time, with radio waves, direct, targeted, aimed precisely at Cerro Paranal. He routed the signal through the speakers, at first just static, then, underneath, a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat, and then voices, dozens of them, hundreds, overlapping, whispering, screaming, singing, in every language and no language, words that sounded human but weren't, syllables that crawled under his skin and made his teeth ache. Elias grabbed the headphones, yanked them on, isolated the signal. The voices resolved into data, pure information, streaming faster than should be possible, burning through his receivers like acid. He opened a capture file, let it record, watched gigabytes of data pour in, images, schematics, coordinates, genetic sequences, mathematical proofs, astronomical data, things he didn't have words for, and at the center of it all, repeating over and over, a timestamp, a date. November 7th, 2025, 19 days from now. The transmission ended as suddenly as it began. Silence crashed back like a wave. Elias sat in the dark, hands trembling, staring at 47 gigabytes of alien data. Number, not alien, human. Every file marker, every piece of metadata, every structural element of the transmission. It was all human in origin, built on human protocols, formatted for human systems. Someone had put this together. Someone who understood Earth technology, Earth timekeeping, Earth genetics. Someone who knew exactly how to talk to him. He sat there for a long time, just breathing. The observatory's systems hummed around him. Outside, the first light of dawn was touching the peaks of the Andes. Finally, when his hands stopped shaking enough to work the keyboard, he opened the first image file. The photograph resolution was impossibly high, every pixel sharp and clear. It showed Earth from space, the familiar blue marble, white clouds swirling over continents he'd known his entire life. But wrong, the lights were different. At night, Earth glows with human civilization. Cities pulse like neurons firing. Roads connect them like synapses. From space, you can trace the outline of humanity's presence by following the light. This Earth had too much light. Megastructures sprawled across coastlines like metallic growth. Massive arcologies rose where cities should be, and threading the atmosphere, visible even from satellite distance, were orbital rings, dozens of them, circling the planet like the rings of Saturn but made of metal and glass and purpose. Elias checked the metadata. The timestamp read 2087-03-17-1422 00 UTC, 62 years from now. He opened the second photograph, also Earth, also from space, but darker this time, fewer lights. The orbital rings were broken, massive sections missing, others hanging at wrong angles like broken bones. Huge storm systems covered half the Pacific, bigger than anything he'd seen in current satellite data. Timestamp? 2134-11-08-03-1542 UTC. The third photograph, Earth again, but almost unrecognizable. The lights were nearly gone. The atmosphere looked different, thicker, hazier. The orbital rings were gone completely, just debris fields where they used to be. And the clouds, they didn't look like weather, they looked like ash. Timestamp. 2198-06-23-1947-18 UTC. Elias flipped through them chronologically, his stomach turning to ice. 23 photographs total, watching a civilization rise and fall in frozen moments, each one time-stamped, each one impossibly detailed, each one showing Earth's future. Cities that didn't exist yet, technologies that hadn't been invented, a history that hadn't happened yet. The final photograph was dated 2300 10
The atmosphere was there, the oceans were there, the continents were in the right places.
But there was no light, no sign of human presence, no cities, no structures, no orbital installations, just a planet, beautiful and dead and silent. Elias pushed back from the desk, bile rising in his throat. He made it to the bathroom, vomited until there was nothing left, then sat on the cold tile floor, shaking. This wasn't a message. This was a obituary. Someone had sent him photographs of humanity's extinction, had shown him the future, our future, in 23 images spanning 276 years, had documented our rise and fall with the clinical precision of a pathologist photographing a corpse. But who and why? And how did they know? When he could stand again, he went back to the computer, forced himself to keep looking, to open the next files, astronomical data, star charts. But the positions were wrong, shifted, drifted, moved from where they should be. Not wrong, future. He cross-referenced the stellar positions with current data, calculated drift rates, proper motion, galactic rotation. His hands moved on autopilot, running the mathematics he'd done 1,000 times before. The star charts matched what the sky would look like in the year 2301, 276 years from now, the same date as the final Earth photograph. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to find some rational explanation that didn't shatter everything he understood about causality and time and how the universe worked. He couldn't, so he kept digging. Technical schematics filled dozens of folders, designs for fusion reactors that made current models look like steam engines, quantum processors operating on principles that shouldn't be possible, propulsion systems that seemed to bend space-time itself, manufacturing techniques, energy storage, materials, science, medical technology, all of it advanced, all of it beyond current human capability, all of it human in design and genetic data. So much genetic data, complete genomes, thousands of them, every person on the original list of 47 and hundreds more, catalogued, preserved, tagged with birth dates and death dates and biographical information, like seeds in a vault, like the last backup of a dying species. Elias found a text file buried in the astronomical data, simple format, human readable, plain English. He opened it with shaking hands. The first line said, "By the time you read this, we are already gone." He read the rest in silence, the words burning into his mind like acid. This message is being sent backward through plasma conduits that shouldn't exist, using physics we barely understand from a time that may no longer have a future. We don't know if this will work. We don't know if causality allows what we're attempting. We don't know if you'll receive this before the wave arrives, or if time is more rigid than we hope. But we have to try, because we failed. We had 70 years of warning. We saw the signs. We measured the magnetic anomalies. We tracked the density waves approach. We knew it was coming, and we couldn't stop it. We tried everything. Genetic engineering to survive the radiation, underground cities to escape the surface chaos, orbital habitats to flee the planet entirely. We built fusion reactors and quantum shields and magnetic deflectors. We poured every resource, every innovation, every desperate idea into surviving the wave. None of it worked. The wave didn't kill us with fire or violence. It killed us with time, with the slow degradation of every system that allowed complex life. The magnetic field weakened, cosmic rays increased, the climate destabilized beyond recovery, ecosystems collapsed, the food chain broke, and we, at the top of that chain, fell the furthest. By 2287, we were already ghosts. By 2301, we were memory. This archive contains everything we were, our genetics, our technology, our culture, our art, our mistakes, our desperate final attempts to matter. We're sending it backward because forward doesn't exist anymore. We're sending it to you because you're the ones who might still have time. The wave is coming. It's already started. By the time you read this, the leading edge will be measurable. The anomalies will be appearing. The clock will be ticking. You have decades, maybe less. Use them better than we did. The last archive, compiled 2301-01-01, transmitted via Atlas Relay. Elias read it 3 times, then a 4th, then sat in stunned silence as the sun climbed higher over the Atacama Desert, painting the mountains gold and red. Someone in the future had sent this, someone who claimed to be human, who claimed to be us, dying slowly in a future that was already written, a future where the wave came and humanity ended, and all that was left was data shot backward through time in a desperate attempt to change what had already happened. The question that haunted him, the one he couldn't shake, the one that made his hands tremble and his breath come short, was simple. If they sent this from 2301, and we're receiving it now in 2025, and the timeline is fixed, then does that mean everything they described is inevitable? Are we just acting out the prelude to a script that's already written? Or did the act of sending the message create a split, a branch point where something different becomes possible? Elias didn't know, but he knew he had to find out. The first photograph was of Earth, but wrong. The continents were in the right places, but the lights were different. Too many cities, too bright, megastructures sprawling across coastlines like metallic cancers, orbital rings visible even from satellite distance, threading the atmosphere like stitches. The second photograph was also Earth, darker this time, fewer lights, massive storm systems covering half the Pacific, the orbital rings broken, hanging in pieces. The third photograph was Earth again, silent, dark, clouds that looked like ash. Elias flipped through them chronologically, watching a civilization rise and collapse in 23 images, each one time-stamped, each one impossibly detailed. Cities that didn't exist yet, technologies that hadn't been invented, a history that hadn't happened yet. His coffee had gone cold again. Dawn was coming. Elias didn't care. He opened the next file. Astronomical data. Star charts. But the positions were wrong. Shifted. Drifted. Moved from where they should be. Not wrong. Future. He cross-referenced the stellar positions with current data, calculated drift rates, proper motion, galactic rotation. The star charts matched what the sky would look like in the year 2301, 276 years from now. Okay, Elias whispered. Okay. This wasn't a message. It was a time capsule, or a warning. He dug deeper, found technical schematics, designs for things he half recognized, fusion reactors, quantum processors, something that looked like a propulsion system but operated on principles that made his physics degree weep, and genetic data. So much genetic data, complete genomes, thousands of them, every person on the original list and hundreds more, catalogued, preserved, like seeds in a vault, like the last backup of a dying species. Elias found a text file buried in the astronomical data, human-readable, simple English. He opened it. The first line said, "By the time you read this, we are already gone." His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The document was technical, clinical, written by someone who'd stopped feeling things a long time ago. It described a phenomenon called a galactic density wave, a spiral-shaped disturbance in the matter and energy distribution of the Milky Way. Astronomers knew about these waves. They were responsible for triggering star formation, shaping spiral arms, organizing galactic structure. What they didn't know, what this document claimed, was that the waves were cyclical, predictable, and catastrophic. Every 274 million years, a major density wave swept through the galaxy's habitable zone. And wherever it passed, everything died. Not immediately, not dramatically, just gradual systemic collapse. The wave altered stellar magnetic fields, disrupted planetary cores, increased cosmic ray exposure, triggered mass extinction events not through violence, but through a slow poisoning of the conditions that allowed complex life. Earth had been hit before, the Permian extinction, the Ordovician, the late Devonian, each one coinciding, roughly, imperfectly, but consistently, with the passage of a density wave through our region of space. And according to the data, another wave was coming, not in millions of years, in decades. The document included observational data, recent changes in local stellar magnetic fields, anomalies in the cosmic ray background, unexpected variations in the solar wind. things that current astronomy had noticed but dismissed as noise. Things that, when viewed together, painted a picture of incoming devastation. But here's what broke Elias. The data also showed plasma tunnels, massive magnetic field-aligned structures threading through the galaxy, like neural pathways in a brain, connecting stars, connecting systems, and these tunnels could transmit information faster than light. Not matter, not objects, but data. Pure information riding magnetic waves through the interstellar medium, quantum entangled across light years. Someone had used these tunnels to send a message backward through time. Not literally backward, physics didn't work that way, but close enough. By encoding data in self-replicating quantum states and sending it through the plasma network ahead of a density wave's arrival, you could essentially create a message that existed before the event that triggered it. Cause and effect, scrambled, the future reaching back to touch the past. And Atlas, 3I/Atlas, the object that everyone thought was a comet, wasn't a comet at all. It was a relay station, a quantum archive sent backward through the plasma tunnel network, carrying the genetic and cultural information of humanity's final generation, a message in a bottle thrown across time, by us, to us, from the end of everything. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe. If this was real, if any of this was real, then humanity had already lost. The future was written, the wave was coming, and the only thing the survivors could do was scream backward into the past and hope someone heard. He'd heard. Now what? Elias spent the next 18 hours analyzing the genetic data. The 47 people whose DNA was encoded in Atlas's initial signal weren't random. They were specific, chosen. He built a database, cross-referenced names with public records, academic publications, social media profiles, looked for patterns. 15 were scientists, astrophysics, genetics, computer science, engineering. 8 were artists, musicians, writers, filmmakers. 12 were teachers. 7 were medical professionals. 3 were politicians. 2 were clergy. And all of them, every single one, had something in common. They'd lost someone. Elias went through their histories, found the deaths, parents, siblings, children, partners, lost to accidents, illness, violence, time. Sarah Chen's younger brother had died in a car crash when she was 19. Dr. Marcus Webb's wife had succumbed to cancer 3 years before the Kepler mission. Yuki Tanaka had lost a daughter to leukemia, and Elias had lost 3 people he was supposed to save. He sat with that realization for a long time. The desert wind moaned against the observatory walls. His coffee had gone cold for the 4th time that night. Was this selection criteria? Had someone in the future chosen people who understood loss? Who knew what it meant to be too late? Or was it something else? Something about grief making you more likely to listen when the universe whispered its terrible truths? He didn't know, but he knew he had to contact them, had to tell them what he'd found, had to give them the choice to know. Elias started with Sarah. He encrypted the files, wrote a careful email explaining nothing and everything, and hit send at 3:47 a.m. 3 hours later, his phone rang. "What the hell did you send me?" Sarah's voice was sharp, scared. "Elias, what the hell is this?" "It's real," he said quietly. "I know how it sounds, but it's real." You're saying this is from the future? From us? That we're receiving our own... I'm saying Atlas is broadcasting human genetic data that includes your DNA and mine. I'm saying it's responding to transmissions. I'm saying something is coming and someone tried to warn us. Silence. "Sarah, I'm here." Her voice had changed, smaller. "I pulled up the astronomical data in your files, the stellar positions. I ran them backward. And they're accurate. For 2301, down to the fucking arc second." He heard her breath catch. "Elias, how is this possible? Plasma tunnels, quantum state preservation, information transmitted faster than causality through galactic magnetic structures. We can't do that. Nobody can do that. We can't." But maybe they could. Maybe by 2031 we figured it out. and maybe the only thing they could send back was data, information, a warning. About what? A galactic density wave, an extinction event, something that wipes out complex life every few 100 million years. And it's coming again. The line went silent for so long Elias thought she'd hung up. Sarah, when? Her voice was barely a whisper. The data suggests the wavefront hits our region of space in 60 to 80 years, but the effects, the magnetic disruptions, the radiation increases, they start sooner, within decades. So we have time? Maybe, if this is real, if I'm not completely insane. You're not insane. She sounded more sure of that than he felt. I'm looking at the data. It's too consistent, too detailed. This isn't a hoax. Then help me. Help me contact the others on the list. Help me figure out what we're supposed to do with this. Another pause. Elias, if this is real, if the future really sent this back, why these 47 people? Why us? He'd been asking himself the same question all night. I don't know, he admitted, but I think we're about to find out. The others came slowly at first, then all at once. Dr. Webb called from MIT, furious and terrified. This is a security breach. Someone hacked satellite networks and fabricated... Check the star charts, Elias told him. Run the orbital mechanics yourself. Cross-reference the genetic data with the databases. Tell me I'm wrong. Webb hung up, called back 6 hours later, said nothing for a long moment, just breathed. Then, I'm coming to Chile. You don't have to. I'm coming to Chile, Webb repeated, because if this is real, I need to look you in the eye. And if it's not real, I need to understand how you fabricated something this comprehensive. Either way, I'm coming. He arrived 3 days later, walked into the observatory like a man approaching a funeral. They didn't shake hands, just stood there, two people who'd failed in different ways, staring at each other across the weight of shared guilt. Show me, Webb said. Elias showed him everything, the light pattern analysis, the genetic decoding, the photographs of future Earth, the technical schematics, the archive documentation, all of it. Webb didn't speak. Just absorbed the data with the methodical precision of a man who'd spent his life reducing the universe to numbers. When he finally looked up, his face was grey. The fusion reactor designs, he said. I ran simulations. They work. They're more efficient than anything we have by orders of magnitude. The mathematics are elegant. The engineering is sound. This is real human innovation, just decades ahead of our current capability. I know. The astronomical data? I checked it against current stellar positions, applied proper motion calculations. The drift rates are precise. This is what the sky will look like in 2031. I know. The genetic sequences, I verified them against public databases. They're not fabricated, they're real human DNA, including mine. Webb's voice cracked. Including Yuki's. Elias nodded. She was supposed to be here, Webb said quietly, supposed to survive long enough to be in that bunker, but she died because I approved a mission with insufficient safety protocols, because I was in a hurry, because I thought we had time. And she died because I waited 6 hours for better data instead of sending rescue immediately. They stood in silence, sharing the weight of their ghosts. I read my file in the archive, Webb said finally. My biographical data. It said I survived to 2073, died in the Tokyo habitat collapse, killed by falling debris while trying to evacuate civilians. He smiled bitterly. At least I die well, apparently. Does knowing help? No, it makes it worse, because now I have 48 years of wondering if I can change it, if any of this matters, if... His voice broke. Elias looked away, giving him privacy for his grief. When Webb spoke again, his voice was steady, professional. We need more verification, more people analysing this independently. The scientific community won't accept this based on our word alone. They're already involved. Sarah's recruiting researchers. Physicist in Vienna verified the quantum mechanics. Geneticist in Mumbai confirmed the DNA authenticity. Computer scientist in Vancouver validated the data structure. And they all reached the same conclusion. This is real. This is human. This is from our future. Webb nodded slowly. then we have a problem. Because he checked his watch, 16 days, the archive says the wave's leading edge becomes measurable, November 7th, when instruments start detecting the anomalies that mark the beginning of the end. The beginning of their end, Elias corrected. Maybe not ours. You really think we can change it? I think we have to try. A composer in Vienna called, voice shaking. The musical notation in the archive. The compositions attributed to my future self. I played them. They're beautiful. They're in my style, but more mature, more refined. I couldn't have written them yet, but I will. Somehow I know I will. A surgeon in Mumbai, clinical and precise. The medical data is extraordinary. Treatments for conditions we haven't cured yet. Surgical techniques that shouldn't be possible with current technology. But the documentation is meticulous. I could implement some of these procedures right now if I had to. A high school teacher in Vancouver crying, "My students." There are photographs of my students in the archive, grown up, in their 30s and 40s. Some of them survived the wave for decades, some of them didn't. I know their futures, I know which ones make it and which ones don't, and I can't. Elias listened to them all, took notes, coordinated verification efforts, watched the network of belief spread like cracks in ice, each person confirming another piece of the impossible puzzle. And one by one, they asked the same question. What do we do? Elias didn't have an answer, but the date kept getting closer. November 7th, 2025. 19 days, then 15, then 9. Atlas continued its impossible deceleration, spiraling inward through the solar system, now past Jupiter's orbit, now past Mars. Bright enough to see with the naked eye, a silver star that moved, that watched, that blinked its terrible message to anyone willing to listen. The news picked it up. Mysterious interstellar visitor slows down. Astronomers speculated about solar radiation pressure, about magnetic field interactions, about anything except the obvious truth. Talking heads debated. Was it alien? Natural? A hoax? Nobody mentioned the message. Elias and the others kept quiet, still trying to understand what they'd been given. Still trying to figure out what the future wanted them to do with this knowledge, until November 3rd. That's when the images started arriving, not transmitted by ATLAS, just appearing, on their devices, their computers, their phones, pushed through quantum entanglement or dark matter networks or sheer impossible will. The first one appeared on Elias's laptop while he was analyzing wave propagation data. One moment, his screen showed graphs and calculations. The next moment, a photograph. Cerro Paranal, the observatory, taken from outside. But the angle was wrong. Too high to be from ground level, too low to be satellite imagery, and the timestamp said it was taken 3 seconds ago. Someone was watching him, right now. His phone buzzed. Message from Sarah. "Are you seeing this?" Seeing what? An image arrived. Her office at Palomar. Same impossible angle, same current timestamp, same feeling of being observed. The group chat exploded with messages. Webb from MIT. Just received a photo of my apartment, taken from inside, nobody here but me. The Vienna composer. Picture of me at my piano. I'm alone in my practice room, doors locked, no cameras. Mumbai surgeon. Operating theatre. Mid-surgery. Angle from the ceiling, no cameras there. 47 people receiving 47 photographs. All current, all impossible, all delivering the same message. We see you. We are here. We are watching. Elias stared at the image of his observatory, hands shaking. This wasn't data from the future anymore. This was real-time surveillance from something that could observe them across the planet simultaneously. Through walls, through locked doors, through empty space. His laptop chimed again. Another image appeared. This one showed him, right now, sitting at his desk, staring at the screen, looking at a photograph of himself, looking at a photograph of himself. Infinite regression, a mirror reflecting a mirror reflecting a mirror, the timestamp updated in real time. And in the corner of the image, almost too small to see, was a line of text. November 7th. Watch the sky. On November 6th, the night before the timestamp, Elias received a final transmission. He was alone in the observatory. Sarah had returned to California. Webb to MIT, the others to their scattered corners of the world, all of them monitoring, waiting, preparing for whatever November 7th would bring. The transmission arrived at 11:58 p.m., a video file, 47 seconds long, unmarked, unencrypted, just there, appearing in his inbox from an address that didn't exist. Elias stared at it for a full minute before clicking play. The footage was shaky, handheld, shot in low light, emergency lighting casting everything in red and shadow. The camera showed a bunker, reinforced concrete walls, sealed blast doors, computer banks running on backup power, the hum of failing ventilation systems audible beneath labored breathing, and people, dozens of them, thin, tired, scared, moving through the frame like ghosts already, like they'd forgotten how to be solid. The camera panned across their faces. Elias recognized some of them, older versions of people on the list. Sarah with grey hair and lines around her eyes, Webb with a scar across his jaw and a prosthetic arm, the Vienna composer skeletal and hollow-eyed, the Mumbai surgeon still working, still trying to save people who couldn't be saved. Others he didn't know but somehow felt he should. Faces that carried a terrible familiarity, like looking at relatives he'd never met. Then the camera turned to show the person filming. It was him, older, maybe 60, gaunt, haunted, but unmistakably Elias Ward. Future. Elias looked directly into the camera, directly at him, through time, through impossibility, through the membrane between what was and what would be, and spoke. "I don't know if this will reach you. I don't know if any of this matters. The physics say it should work. Quantum entanglement across temporal vectors, information preserved in the plasma network. But physics also says what we're doing is impossible." His voice was rougher than Elias remembered, damaged by years of breathing recycled air and shouting into the dark. "But if you're watching this, then the relay worked. The tunnels held. The message got through. And maybe you have a chance we didn't." He looked away from the camera, at something off-screen. When he looked back, his eyes were wet. The wave came faster than we predicted. The magnetic disruption started in 2047. Small at first, compass anomalies, navigation errors, electronic malfunctions we thought were just bad luck or human error. By 2063, the pattern was undeniable. The Earth's magnetic field was weakening, not the gradual weakening of a pole shift. This was systematic, accelerating, like something was stripping away our protection layer by layer. By 2089, the extinctions were irreversible. The food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Plankton died. Fish died. Everything that depended on them died. We tried to compensate with artificial food production, but we couldn't scale fast enough. Couldn't feed 8 billion people when the ocean was dying and the soil was poisoned and the air was thick with radiation. We tried everything. Genetic engineering to make crops radiation resistant, underground farms, closed-loop ecosystems, orbital habitats, Mars colonies, generation ships to other stars. He laughed, broken and bitter. None of it worked. The wave didn't just kill life on Earth, it made life impossible, sterilized the conditions that allowed complexity. It's not that we couldn't adapt, it's that there was nothing left to adapt to. By 2014-30, we were down to a few thousand. By 2028-7, a few hundred. Now, he gestured at the bunker around him. Now, we're 47 people in a hole 5 miles down, running on geothermal and hope, and we're failing. The reactors are dying, the air recyclers are breaking down, the water purification is offline more than it's online. We have maybe 6 months, maybe less. Future Elias leaned closer to the camera. So we built Atlas, took everything we were, genetics, technology, culture, memory, and encoded it into quantum states that could survive the wave. Shot it backward through the plasma network and prayed it would arrive before the beginning, before the first anomaly, before the point where changing course was still possible. Not to save us. We're already dead, have been for years really, we just haven't stopped moving yet. But to save you, to give you the data, the warning, the knowledge we didn't have until it was too late. His hand reached towards the camera, trembling. November 7th, tomorrow for you, if the calculations are right. That's when the wave's leading edge crosses into detectable range, when your instruments will start seeing what we saw, when your world begins the long, slow slide into silence that ends here, in this bunker, with us, unless you change it, unless you do what we couldn't. Tears tracked down his weathered face. I'm sorry we failed you. I'm sorry we couldn't be smarter or faster or better. I'm sorry the only thing we could do was shout backward into time and hope someone heard. But you heard. You listened. You believed when everyone said you were crazy. You're the part of us that gets to try again. Future Elias's expression hardened, resolved. Don't waste it. Don't make our mistakes. Don't assume you have more time than you do. Don't wait for consensus or approval or perfect data. The wave is coming. It's already there. And it doesn't care about your politics or your economies or your carefully laid plans. But maybe if you start now, if you coordinate globally, if you put every resource into survival instead of comfort, maybe you can do what we couldn't. Maybe you can live. He reached toward the camera again. His finger touched the lens. This is the last message. After this, we shut down all non-essential systems to preserve power, to buy ourselves another week, another day, another hour. We'll spend it remembering, telling stories, being human for as long as we can. And when the end comes, we'll go knowing we tried, knowing we sent a message that mattered, knowing that somewhere, somewhen, you're watching this, and maybe possibly choosing differently. Future Elias smiled, sad and tired and strangely peaceful. We thought we were the end. Maybe we're just the beginning again. Maybe that's how it works. The universe folding back on itself, learning from its mistakes, trying again. If that's true, if there's some cosmic recursion where every ending feeds the next beginning, then we're not dying. We're just changing state, becoming information, becoming memory, becoming the warning that saves the next iteration. He leaned back. Good luck, Elias. All of you. Make it mean something. The video ended. Elias sat in the dark, tears streaming down his face, watching the timestamp tick toward midnight, toward November 7th, toward the beginning of the end, or the beginning of everything else. Outside, Atlas hung in the night sky like a promise, like a threat, like the future reaching back to touch the past. And somewhere in the distance, moving through space and time and probability, the wave was coming, silent, invisible, inevitable, unless it wasn't. November 7th, 2025. The anomalies appeared at 0613 UTC, not on Earth, in space, across the solar system, simultaneously. Every major observatory saw it. Magnetic field distortions around Mars, unusual plasma density near Venus, solar wind variations that made no sense, cosmic ray detectors spiking, neutrino sensors screaming. The wave had arrived, not the killing part, not yet, just the leading edge, the first whisper of the scream that would take decades to fully arrive. But it was measurable, verifiable, undeniable. The scientific community erupted, conferences were called, data was shared, theories exploded and collapsed and reformed. And in the chaos, nobody noticed one disgraced astrophysicist uploading a compressed data file to a dozen anonymous servers around the world. Elias hit confirm upload at 6:47 a.m. Chilean time. The Atlas archive, all 47 gigabytes of it, began spreading across the internet like wildfire, unstoppable, uncensorable, a message from the future released into the present without permission or protocol or any chance of containment. Within an hour, scientists around the world were downloading it, analyzing it, confirming it. Within 3 hours, the media had the story. Within 6 hours, governments started making statements. By noon, the world knew. Humanity had received a message from its own future, a warning, a record, proof that we would survive long enough to witness our own extinction, and desperate enough to try to prevent it. Elias turned off his screens, walked outside, looked up at the morning sky where ATLAS hung like a silver promise. His phone rang. Sarah. You did it, she said. You actually did it. Had to. They were going to bury it, classify it, lock it away while they studied the implications. He laughed, bitter and tired. Like we have time for implications. What happens now? I don't know. People smarter than me figure out if we can actually change anything, if the wave can be survived, if the future is fixed or flexible. And if it's fixed, if we're just living out the prelude to what we already saw. Elias watched a contrail cross the sky, thought about the bunker, about future him dying slowly in the dark, about the decision to send a message backward knowing it might not matter. Then we make it mean something anyway, he said quietly. We try. Even if we fail, we try. Yeah, Sarah said. Yeah, okay. I have to go, Elias told her. There are people coming. What people? He could see the vehicles on the access road. Black SUVs, government plates, the kind who don't like it when you break the future's non-disclosure agreement. Elias, it's fine. I knew this was coming, but the data's out there now. That's what matters. Where will they take you? Does it matter? He smiled. The wave's already here. We're all in the same bunker now, just nobody knows it yet. The vehicles pulled up. Men in suits emerged, polite, professional, inevitable. Elias ended the call, raised his hands, submitted to the handcuffs and the silence and the black SUVs that would carry him away from the last place he'd ever felt like himself. As they drove down the mountain, he looked back once at Cerro Paranal, at the observatory that remembered, at the telescopes still watching the sky, and at ATLAS burning bright in the morning light, a message in a bottle, a scream across time. We were here, it said. We mattered, we tried. They didn't call it imprisonment. They called it protective consultation. The facility was somewhere in Nevada, underground, unmarked, staffed by people who never gave their names. Elias was treated well. Federal, given a room with a bed, allowed books, but no internet, no phone, no communication with the outside world. And every day they asked him questions. How did you decode the signal? What else did the transmission contain? Who else has access to the raw data? What do you think they want from us? That last question always made him laugh. They don't want anything, he'd say. They're us. And we're already dead. This is just us screaming into the past and hoping it changes something. The interrogators, analysts, researchers never seemed satisfied with that answer. One of them, a woman named Dr. Reeves, came to his room on the 5th day. She sat across from him, tablet in hand, looking exhausted. The data is real, she said without preamble. Every verification we run confirms it. The genetic sequences are accurate. The astronomical projections are consistent. The technological schematics work. We've already started testing some of the fusion reactor designs and they're viable. I know, Elias said. So the wave, the extinction cycle, all of it is real. Yes. Dr. Reeves set down her tablet. Then why release it? If you knew this information would cause panic, destabilize governments, create mass hysteria, because the alternative was worse, Elias interrupted. 47 people knowing, a handful of governments hoarding the knowledge, making decisions for 8 billion people without telling them why. That's not survival, that's control. Control might be what saves us. Control is what killed them. He leaned forward. You've seen the files. You know what happened. They tried secrecy, they tried centralized response, elite bunkers and selective survival, and it failed. All of it, because when the wave came, it didn't care about borders or hierarchies or who had clearance. It just came. Dr. Reeves was quiet for a long moment. You know we can't let you leave, she said finally. I know. You know the world is tearing itself apart out there. Religious movements claiming this is rapture, governments collapsing, markets in free fall, suicide rates, her voice caught. Millions of people are terrified because of what you did. Elias met her eyes. Billions of people have a chance because of what I did. They can prepare, innovate, collaborate, maybe find something we missed, maybe survive in ways the future us couldn't imagine. Or maybe you just guaranteed we'll destroy ourselves before the wave even arrives. Maybe, he admitted, but at least it'll be our choice. She stood, walked to the door, paused. The video file, she said without turning, the one showing you, in the future, in that bunker. What about it? We ran facial recognition, aging analysis, biometric comparison. She looked back at him. It's you. Without question. 60 years old, give or take. Which means I survive, Elias finished. At least until then. Lucky me. That's not what I mean. Dr. Reeves's expression was strange, pitying. If that's really you in 2089, then everything you're doing now, every choice you make, it's already happened for him. The timeline is fixed. You're not changing the future. You're creating the past that leads to it. The words hung in the air like a noose. So none of this matters, Elias said quietly. We're just acting out a script that's already written. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Quantum mechanics suggests multiple timelines, branching possibilities. Maybe by sending the data back, they created a split, a new branch where things could go differently. Or maybe we're just the first iteration, the one that fails, so the next one can learn. Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. Either way, you're going to be here for a while. I thought you should know that. She left. Elias sat in the silence of his room, staring at the blank walls, thinking about futures and pasts and the terrible weight of time. Somewhere above him, the world was changing. People were afraid, angry, desperate, hopeful, all because he'd opened a door that could never be closed. And somewhere in the dark, ATLAS kept transmitting, kept remembering, kept being the archive of everything humanity would become and lose and try to save. He closed his eyes, tried to sleep, dreamed of bunkers. 3 weeks later, they brought him a visitor. Elias was in the facility's recreation room, a generous term for a grey space with a few chairs and outdated magazines, when the door opened and Dr. Marcus Webb walked in. Older than his photos, harder but unmistakably the man from the Kepler mission, the man who'd testified that Elias made the wrong call. They stared at each other for a long moment. They told me you'd been brought here too, Elias said finally. Webb nodded. Protective consultation. Apparently everyone on the list is considered a strategic asset now. He sat down heavily. I convinced them to let me talk to you. Why? Because I owe you an apology. Elias blinked. For what? For the inquiry. For saying you made the wrong decision? For... Webb's jaw tightened. For not listening 8 years ago when you told us you'd found something. If I had, if any of us had, maybe we'd have had more time to prepare. You couldn't have known, neither could you. That's my point. Webb leaned back. We both made calls with incomplete information. Mine just didn't kill anyone. But it was luck, not wisdom. The words settled between them like sediment. They told you about Yuki, Elias said, not a question. That her DNA was in the transmission. Yes, Webb's voice went rough. She was on that list. With us, like she was supposed to survive long enough to be in that bunker. But she didn't, because I approved a mission with insufficient safety redundancies, and you made a call that seemed reasonable at the time. 6 hours, Elias whispered. I waited 6 hours for better data. And I waited 3 weeks to approve a repair protocol that could have prevented the failure in the first place. Webb shook his head. We're both wearing the same ghost, Elias. Just different names. Silence. Have you seen the news? Webb asked finally. No, they don't give us access. The world is adapting. Chaos at first, but then people started organizing. International cooperation on a scale we've never seen. Scientists sharing data. Governments pooling resources. 12 different teams trying to develop wave-shielding technology based on the ATLAS schematics. Will any of it work? I don't know. Maybe. The future use had 70 years to work on it and failed. But they also didn't have the advantage of knowing it was coming. We do, because of you. Elias looked away. I just released data. I didn't solve anything. You gave us a chance. That's more than we had. Webb stood. They're going to keep you here. You know that, right? At least until they figure out what to do with people who've seen the future. I know. For what it's worth. Thank you. For listening when the universe whispered. for being crazy enough to respond, for caring more about truth than safety. He extended a hand. Elias took it. Webb left, and Elias sat alone, thinking about choices and ghosts and the strange grace of being forgiven by someone who understood guilt. The breakthrough came on December 2nd. Dr. Reeves arrived at Elias's room at 2 a.m., tablet clutched in white-knuckled hands. "We found something," she said, "in the ATLAS data. Something you missed." Elias sat up. "What?" She pulled up a file, buried in the genetic sequences, steganographically hidden in what looked like junk DNA, a secondary message. "From who?" "We don't know, but it's not from the future you. The encoding is different, the style is different, and the content." She handed him the tablet. Elias read. The message was short, mathematical, a series of coordinates in 4-dimensional space-time and an instruction. "Look again at the wave." "We did," Dr. Reeves said. "We reanalyzed all the density wave data from the transmission, ran simulations, and we found something the future you either didn't know or couldn't tell us." She pulled up a visualization. The Milky Way rotating slowly, a spiral wave moving through it, beautiful and terrible. "The wave isn't natural," she said quietly. Elias stared. "What?" "It's too regular, too precise. The periodicity is exact. 274 million years, down to the century. Natural galactic processes don't work like that. There's always variation. Drift chaos." "Then what is it?" Dr. Reeves met his eyes. "We think it's artificial, a mechanism. Something created to periodically sterilize the galaxy of complex life." The room tilted. "Why?" Elias managed. "We don't know, but there's more." She pulled up another file. The plasma tunnels. The ones used to send ATLAS backward. We mapped their structure across the galaxy. The image showed the Milky Way threaded with glowing lines, neural pathways, a network. "They're not random either," Dr. Reeves said. "They're organized, purposeful, like infrastructure, like someone built them." "Who?" "That's the question, isn't it?" She sat down. "Either there's an intelligence in this galaxy so old and advanced that it can engineer extinction cycles across billions of years, or the galaxy itself is the intelligence, and the waves are its immune response, clearing out complexity before it becomes a threat." Elias felt sick. The future us. Did they know? The hidden message suggests someone did. Someone who couldn't or wouldn't include it in the main transmission. Someone who wanted us to figure it out ourselves. Why? "Because maybe the wave can't be stopped," Dr. Reeves said softly. "Maybe it's too big, too fundamental. But if it's artificial, if it's a mechanism, then mechanisms can be understood, predicted, maybe even negotiated with." "You're saying we should try to communicate with the thing trying to kill us?" "I'm saying we should try to understand it. Because if the wave is intelligent, then extinction isn't inevitable. It's a choice, and choices can be changed." She stood. "We're assembling a team. Physicists, mathematicians, xenobiologists, philosophers, people who can think about the galaxy as a living system, who can look for signs of purpose in the cosmic patterns. And you want me? You're the one who heard the first signal, who responded when everyone else said you were crazy, who listened." She paused at the door. "The wave is coming. We have decades, maybe, but before we try to survive it, we need to understand what it is, what it wants, why it exists. And if we find out it's just a natural process after all, no intelligence, no purpose, just physics?" Dr. Reeves smiled sadly. "Then at least we'll die knowing we asked." She left him with the tablet, with the hidden message, with the terrible knowledge that humanity's extinction might not be an accident, might be a policy. Elias stared at the galactic map until the stars blurred, thought about the wave, about the future, about the possibility that somewhere in the dark, something old and vast was watching, had always been watching, and had decided, every 274 million years, to press reset. The question was, why? And the bigger question, could we convince it to stop? They moved him to a different facility. This one wasn't underground, it was in orbit. The Aurora station, hastily repurposed from a commercial space habitat into a research platform, far enough from Earth that accidental leaks wouldn't matter, close enough to relay data in real time. Elias floated in the observation dome, watching Earth turn beneath him, and tried to remember what normal felt like. The team Dr. Reeves assembled was brilliant and terrified in equal measure. 17 researchers from 9 countries, all asking the same impossible question. Is the galaxy alive? They'd been working for 6 weeks, running simulations, analyzing the plasma tunnel network, looking for patterns in the density wave structure, searching for anything that looked like intention, and they'd found it. Not proof, not certainty, but enough to make the hair on the back of Elias's neck stand up every time he looked at the data. The plasma tunnels weren't just communication infrastructure, they were reactive. When matter entered them in specific ways, the tunnels changed, adapted, routed information differently, like neurons firing, like a nervous system responding to stimuli, and the density waves, when mapped across millions of years, showed variation, not random variation, responsive variation. Places where the wave had intensified corresponded to regions where technological civilizations had emerged. Places where it had weakened corresponded to regions where complex life struggled, as if the galaxy was paying attention, as if it was making adjustments. "It's insane," said Dr. Yuki Sato, quantum physicist, no relation to the Yuki who died. "We're talking about an intelligence on a scale that makes human civilization look like a bacterium operating on timeframes measured in hundreds of millions of years." "Or," countered Dr. James Okafor, xenobiologist, "we're experiencing pareidolia on a cosmic scale, seeing patterns because we're terrified and desperate for meaning." They'd been having this argument for days. Elias watched Earth, listened to them debate, and thought about the hidden message. Look again at the wave. Someone in the future had known. Had hidden this knowledge in genetic code and sent it back. Why? Because they couldn't say it openly, he said aloud. The team stopped arguing, looked at him. What? Dr. Reeves asked. The hidden message. It was steganographically concealed, encrypted, buried. Why? Elias turned from the window. If the future US wanted to warn us about the wave being artificial, why not just say it? Why hide it? Silence. Unless, Dr. Sato said slowly, they thought someone was listening. Something that could detect direct warnings but might miss hidden ones. The wave, Dr. Okafor breathed. If it's intelligent, if it monitors the plasma tunnels, then it would have seen the ATLAS transmission, Elias finished. Would have known we were trying to warn ourselves. Unless, he pulled up the data, unless the warning about the wave being a mechanism was hidden from the wave itself. Dr. Reeves's face went pale. If that's true. If the galaxy is actively monitoring for signs of civilizations trying to escape extinction, then we're already on its radar, Elias said, just by being here, by receiving the message, by existing at all. The weight of that settled over them like a shroud. So what do we do? Someone asked. Elias looked at Earth, at the blue marble hanging in the dark, at 8 billion people who had no idea they were being watched by something vast and old and possibly hungry. We do what we've always done, he said quietly. We survive anyway. We find a way, because the alternative is lying down and waiting to die, and humans are really bad at that. Even if survival means defying the galaxy itself, especially then. On January 15th, 2026, the Aurora station sent a message, not to Earth, not to Atlas, to the wave. They'd debated it for weeks. The risks were enormous. If the wave was intelligent and hostile, communicating might invite immediate retaliation. If it was natural, they'd be shouting at physics. But if it was intelligent and negotiable, if there was any chance of changing our fate through dialogue rather than resistance, then staying silent was the greater cowardice. The message was simple, mathematical, universal. a prime number sequence to establish intelligence, diagrams of DNA to establish biological origin, images of Earth to establish location, and a question rendered in binary, in chemical notation, in gravitational wave patterns, in every universal language they could conceive. Why do you end us? They aimed it at the density wave's leading edge, now measurable across the solar system, shot it through the plasma tunnels using principles reverse engineered from ATLAS, and waited. Hours passed, then days. The team monitored every frequency, every particle detector, every gravitational sensor. Nothing. It's not going to answer, Dr. Okafor said on day 4, because it's not alive. It's just physics pretending to be purpose. Give it time, Dr. Reeves said. If it operates on galactic timescales, 4 days is a microsecond. On day 7, Elias woke from restless sleep to alarms screaming. He launched himself toward the control room, colliding with other researchers in the zero-gravity corridors. Every screen was lit, every sensor was redlining. "What is it?" he shouted over the noise. Dr. Sato pointed at the main display, hands shaking. The plasma tunnels were moving, all of them, simultaneously, across the entire galactic network, realigning, converging, forming new patterns that looked less like neural pathways and more like eyes, Dr. Reeves whispered. "Oh God, it's looking at us." And then the response came, not through radio, not through light, through gravity. Space-time itself rippled, carrying information encoded in the fabric of reality. The Aurora Station's sensors translated it into data, into images, into knowledge. What they saw broke something fundamental in the human soul. The galaxy was alive, not metaphorically, literally, a distributed intelligence made of stars and gas and dark matter and time, conscious on a scale that made Earth's entire history a single heartbeat. And it was old, so old that it had watched the universe cool from plasma, had guided the formation of the first stars, had nurtured the emergence of complexity, and then carefully, periodically, pruned it. The density waves weren't extinction events, they were harvests. The galaxy was farming intelligence, growing it, letting it develop, waiting until civilizations reached a certain threshold of complexity, the moment they became capable of understanding their place in the cosmic ecology. And then it ended them, not out of malice, out of necessity, because intelligence that grew too complex, too quickly, too aggressively, intelligence like humanity, would eventually consume everything, would turn the galaxy into a wasteland of maximized utility and minimized wonder. The waves prevented that, reset the garden, let new flowers grow, and every 274 million years, the galaxy remembered what it had grown and lost, encoded the memories in objects like Atlas, and sent them backward through time. Not as warnings, as seeds, information preserved, genetic diversity catalogued, the best of each harvest saved and replanted in the next cycle. Humanity wasn't receiving a warning from the future. We were receiving our own resurrection data. The galaxy wasn't trying to kill us. It was trying to reincarnate us. The team stared at the data in horror and awe. "So we die," Dr. Okafor said numbly. "And then, what? We get rebooted, millions of years later." "Essentially," Dr. Sato said, "the genetic data in ATLAS. It's not a warning, it's a backup. The galaxy saves what it kills." "That's not salvation," Elias said. "That's storage. We still end. Everyone we love still dies. Civilization still collapses. And some future version of humanity, genetically identical but culturally blank, gets to start over without knowing what was lost." "Maybe that's the point," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "Fresh starts. No accumulated trauma, no evolutionary dead ends. Just renewal." "I don't want renewal," Elias said. "I want survival. I want the people alive right now to keep being alive." "Then we reject the harvest," Dr. Sato said. "We fight." "Fight a galaxy?" Dr. Okafor laughed, broken. "With what? Nuclear weapons? Strongly worded letters?" "With information," Elias said. They looked at him. "The galaxy operates on timescales we can't match, on scales we can't fight, but it also works through information flow. through plasma tunnels and quantum states, through the same networks that used to send ATLAS. You want to hack the galaxy, Dr. Reeves said flatly. I want to show it something it hasn't seen before, Elias said. Every civilization it's harvested, it watched them panic, saw them try to run or hide or fight, saw them fail and get folded back into the cycle. What if we don't panic? What if we accept the harvest but change its terms? How? Elias pulled up ATLAS's trajectory. The object was still in the solar system, still transmitting, still serving as a relay point between present and future. We send our own backup, he said, not just genetic data, not just technology, culture, article, music, philosophy, stories, everything that makes us human, not just biologically, but spiritually. We flood Atlas with so much human memory that when the galaxy tries to reincarnate us, it can't help but bring back more than just our DNA. The galaxy won't allow it, Dr. Okafor said. It'll wipe the data. Keep only what it wants. Maybe, Elias admitted, or maybe it'll be curious. Maybe an intelligence that old and vast gets bored. Maybe we're the first harvest to say yes, but, instead of no, please. It's insane, Dr. Sato said. So is everything else, Elias replied. Dr. Reeves stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, she said. Let's make ourselves unforgettable. They called it Project Legacy. Every nation contributed, every culture, every language. Within weeks, the largest coordinated data collection effort in human history was underway. Museums digitized their archives, libraries scanned their collections, artists uploaded their work, musicians contributed recordings, ordinary people sent personal stories, family photos, videos of birthday parties and weddings and quiet moments. Humanity in its entirety, compressed into transmittable data and aimed at ATLAS. Elias coordinated from the Aurora station, watching terabyte after terabyte stream toward the interstellar object, watching it accept the data, integrate it, become something more than a relay point, become an archive of who we were. On March 3rd, 2026, they sent the final transmission. The last file was a video, 1 minute long, recorded by Elias in the Aurora station's observation dome. He floated before the camera, Earth hanging behind him, and spoke, "Whoever you are, whatever you are, when you find this, when you decide what to do with us, know this. We knew we were going to die. The future told us, showed us the ending, gave us every reason to despair, and we chose to hope anyway. We chose to pour everything we were into a bottle and throw it into the cosmic ocean, not as a plea for mercy, as a declaration. We were here. We mattered. We loved and created and failed and tried again. We were brief and beautiful, and we refused to be forgotten. The wave is coming. Maybe we can't stop it. Maybe we're not supposed to. But we're not going quietly. We're going with every song we ever sang, every story we ever told, every moment we ever thought was worth preserving. And if you bring us back, if the galaxy's cycle gives us another chance, you're not just getting our DNA. You're getting all of this. All of us. The weight of our joy and grief and stupid, stubborn hope. Try erasing that." He smiled, tired, defiant, human. "See you on the other side." The transmission ended. Atlas received it, stored it, began the long process of encoding 8 billion lives into quantum states that could survive the death of stars. And the galaxy watched, for a moment, a cosmic moment, vast and incomprehensible. It seemed to pause. The density wave's advancement stuttered, just for a fraction of a second, just long enough to wonder. Then it continued. Because that's what waves do. They come, they pass, they reshape everything they touch. But this time, they were carrying something they'd never carried before, not just genetic blueprints. Memory. Elias returned to Earth on April 1st. They released him from protective consultation. No longer an asset, no longer a threat, just a man who'd done what he thought was right and now had to live with the consequences. He took a commercial flight back to Chile, drove up to Cerro Paranal, walked into the abandoned observatory. Was like coming home to a place that never existed. The telescopes still worked. He powered them up, pointed them at ATLAS. The object was leaving now. Having delivered its message and received humanity's response, it was accelerating outward, heading back into deep space, back to the plasma tunnels and the dark between stars, carrying us with it. Sarah joined him 3 days later. She didn't announce herself, just appeared in the control room with coffee and quiet understanding. "Couldn't stay away?" Elias asked. "Couldn't let you watch the end alone," she replied. They sat in silence, monitoring data streams, watching the world respond to its own impending extinction. Surprisingly, humanity didn't collapse. There was fear, yes, panic in some places, but also coordination, purpose, a strange collective decision to make the remaining decades matter. Birth rates spiked, art flourished, people told each other they loved them, projects thought impossible were attempted just to see if they could be done. The world became more human, knowing it was temporary. "Do you think it worked?" Sarah asked one night, stars wheeling overhead. The upload, all of it, the message, the defiance. "Do you think the galaxy cared?" Elias thought about the pause, the momentary hesitation in the wave's approach. "I think we surprised it," he said. "I think maybe, for the first time in billions of years, a harvest talked back. And that has to mean something. Or it means nothing and we're just making ourselves feel better about the inevitable. Maybe. But I'll take meaningful delusion over nihilistic clarity." Sarah laughed. "When did you become an optimist?" "When I saw what we did with the time we had left. When I watched 8 billion people choose hope over despair." He gestured at the data streams. "That's not nothing, Sarah. That's everything." She leaned her head on his shoulder. They watched ATLAS fade into the distance, watched the wave creep closer day by day, magnetic anomaly by magnetic anomaly, and waited for the end, or the beginning, or whatever came after humans stopped trying to control their fate and started trying to make it beautiful. Years later, decades later, centuries, the wave came, slowly, gently, inevitably. It didn't destroy Earth in fire, didn't crack the planet open, just changed things. The magnetic field weakened, cosmic rays increased, climate patterns shifted. The conditions that allowed complex life started degrading, degree by degree, year by year. Humanity fought, adapted, built shielded cities, developed genetic modifications, went underground and underwater and into orbit. For a while, it worked. For a while, we survived. But a while is measured differently on galactic scales. By 2089, the bunkers were failing. By 2014-30, the last city went dark. By 2028-7, only echoes remained. And in 2031, in a bunker 5 miles beneath what used to be called Argentina, Elias Ward, old and tired and haunted by the ghost of his younger self, recorded a video message. He built Atlas from humanity's remnants, encoded everything they'd been, and shot it backward through the plasma tunnels, praying it would arrive in time, knowing it already had, because time is a circle, or a spiral, or something humans never quite understood, and as the galaxy harvested the last of humanity's complex civilization, it did something it had never done before. It hesitated. In the quantum archives, in the genetic data, buried among DNA sequences and technical specifications, it found art, music, stories, love letters, videos of children laughing, records of people trying desperately to matter in a universe that didn't care. The galaxy paused, considered, and made a decision that rippled across timelines like a stone across water. When it reincarnated humanity, when it seeded the genetic material back into Earth's recovering biosphere millions of years later, it included something extra, not just DNA instinct, an evolutionary predisposition toward pattern recognition, toward music, toward storytelling, toward listening for signals in the cosmic static, toward looking up at the stars and wondering, toward hearing messages from the future and believing them. And in some future iteration of humanity, someone like Elias Ward would look at an interstellar object and see a pattern, would decode a message, would respond, would upload their culture to the cosmos and dare it to remember, again and again and again. each cycle slightly different, each iteration carrying forward the weight of all previous attempts, until one day, maybe, humanity would figure out how to break the cycle entirely, or become something the galaxy couldn't harvest, or convince the cosmos that some gardens shouldn't be pruned. But until then, the wave comes, the harvest happens, the memories are preserved, and humanity keeps trying, keeps hoping, keeps being defiantly, impossibly, beautifully human, even when it's futile, especially when it's futile. In the silence between stars, Atlas drifts, carrying the weight of civilizations that haven't existed yet, remembering futures that might never come, broadcasting backward through time. We were here, we mattered, we refused to be forgotten, and somewhere in the dark, the galaxy listens and remember and wonder what we'll try next time, or the beginning again. It's hard to tell the difference from inside the cycle.